go down by the camera, but there's a bit of light down there as well.
Just give us a bit of background first.
Okay, well, here we're on a trail in Dongpei Yen Forest Complex, and as we're walking down here, you can see this trail's quite well defined, but off this trail we've got all these sub-trails, which is just made by wildlife passing across here, like gaur and wild boar, such like, perhaps even tigers, who knows. So anyway, let's go and have a look down here where we've got a camera trap.
How many traps in here?
In this area here, there's about, totally about 200, but in this specific area, about 20.
And the missions for those traps?
These traps have, some of them have been out here as permanent stations for up to 10 years now, and they're doing long-term ecological monitoring of what's happening to the wildlife populations. And then some of them are involved in a spatially explicit grid survey we're doing, which tells you the abundances of the wildlife in the area. So you can see what's happening to the large carnivores like the tigers, and also to the prey species like the deer and wild boar. We can see, hopefully, that these are staying at the same level, or if we're lucky, even increasing in number, which is what we would like to be seeing. But most of all, we want to be seeing that they're not decreasing.
And what sort of figures have you seen over the last few years, if you're going to tell people about key trends you've seen?
Well, the good news is for the tigers that they've certainly increased in numbers, and both the scientific analysis and our direct observations have proven that the tiger numbers are increasing. A couple of years ago there were 6 cubs born, and they've all been successfully reared by their parents, and they've spread out, they've dispersed, and they've established their own territories. So somewhere soon I think we'll be seeing some more baby tigers as well.
What's the breeding cycle?
Well, this is the interesting thing about tigers, is that they're pregnant for a very short time, 104 days, so just over 3 months. And that's because the female is solitary, so she gets pregnant, gives birth very quickly so she can get out and find food again. Like lions, they have a longer gestation because they're with a pride, a family group, and they don't actually have to hunt by themselves. If they're really heavily pregnant, they can rely off food from the others. Yep. So the mother tiger's got to have her cubs, and she's got to have them somewhere safe, say in a small cave or something like that, and she has to go out and find food. But she has to get back really quickly to feed the babies, but also guard them to make sure another carnivore, you know, such as another cat or even a python or something, doesn't come along and eat them. So that takes maybe about another 4 or 5 months before the cubs are ready to come out. After that, they'll follow mum around and they'll learn how to hunt. And they're going to be staying with mum until they're about nearly 2 years old. And that's how long it takes for a tiger to learn how to catch its own food. And then after that, they'll separate from mum and establish their own territories. If it's a female, they stay quite close to the mum. If it's a male, they'll get dispersed by the dominant male in that area, and it might be quite a long way away that the males eventually find their new territories.
What's a typical territory region for a male?
Well, the territories vary in size depending on, basically on prey. The females are the ones that determine this. They need to have enough prey to feed themselves and take care of their cubs. And then the male's territory will generally encompass about 2 or 3 females' territories. And we're talking, in these tropical forests, somewhere about maybe 50 or 60 square kilometers for a female, and maybe 150, 200 square kilometers for a male. And that male will be walking around that territory every day, day in, day out, just checking, are those females ready to come in, you know, in a breeding state, and are there any other males trying to come in and take over? And the females will fight, but they don't fight to the death. Sometimes the males, to keep hold of that territory, will fight to the death. So it's quite a sort of dangerous world that the tigers live in, and consequently they die quite young. The males, if they're lucky, they'll live to about 15, but by the time they're about 13 or 14, they're going to be displaced into areas where it's not quite optimal to live. There's not that much food, and this hastens their decline.
If you're going to give a statistical breakdown, if you had 100 tigers,
yeah,
and you're going to say how many died during infancy versus how many got poached
Okay.
versus how many lived to 15 years? What would a rough ratio be?
Complex question. When the female gives birth to the cubs, it's a generally accepted statistic that half of them will die before they reach maturity. So if she has 4 cubs, she's only going to raise 2 of them. And so during her lifetime, she's only going to have cubs every 2 years or so. And so over a 12 or 13 year breeding period, she's only going to have maybe 10 or 12 cubs that replace her in that area. Now from those, some of them might die later over territorial fights. Some of them might get poached. If you're in a secure environment, those tigers are going to live, all of them are going to live to maturity. But there's not many places like that left in Southeast Asia now, and generally the populations are not doing well. I think the statistics show that out of all of the tiger habitats across Southeast Asia, only 8% have got breeding populations. So it's a pretty dire situation. You've got low breeding rates, you've got a lot of competition leading to fatalities, you've got some areas there's not enough food to sustain them, there's poaching, there's so many different problems that these tigers are facing. It's surprising we've got any left at all.
When we were talking in the car, though, you were saying that there needs to be more optimism around tigers in terms of what can be done.
Yeah, I think situations can be turned around very easily, and all we need is, it's fairly simple. We need dedicated rangers who are going out on patrol, who are well provisioned, well trained, and given the support that they need to be able to do their job properly without any possibility of retribution from poachers or other influential people. And if we secure an area, we're going to see an increase in the prey, and if we've got that ideal situation, we're going to see an increase in the tigers as well. And the more prey there is, the more chance that the female's going to raise her cubs, and we can see a population rehabilitation quite quickly. Within 10 years or so, you've got a good chance of doubling your population.
Can you just give a bit of a quick overview of what your organisation does?
Okay. Here at Freeland, we do ranger training, we do community outreach with populations around parks, and we also do monitoring to see what's happening both with the wildlife populations but also with the poaching trends as well. So we provide these parks with everything they need to be implementing a holistic approach to park protection. It's quite a challenge because these parks are employing quite a number of rangers, and at the moment there's not that much awareness about the needs of all of the rangers. So they're pretty badly equipped and they don't always get the support they need from the park management. There are a few NGOs like Freeland out there helping in these situations, but there's also a lot of parks out there which don't have any support, and we need to be taking these successful protocols and activities we've developed here and expanding them to other parks, so that instead of having just 2 breeding populations of tigers in Thailand, we'll have, say, 20 breeding populations. But all of this is going to take time and money and more resources to be able to expand that.
And where can people find out more?
Okay, if people are interested in supporting Freeland, you can go to our website at www.freeland.org, or you can go to our Facebook as well. Just type in Freeland and you'll find our Facebook.
Cheers, Tim.